Okay? So, no. Go back there. Don't run away. First of all, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that there was an aspect of his devotion that came from a longing soul. You will see that his soul was thirsting. His soul was thirsting. Many of us don't know what it takes to draw the presence of God in your direction. The Lord responds to the longing of the souls of his people. And I don't have time to walk it out this morning about seeking God, securing God, and knowing what is on the mind of God. It's a protocol that you find littered across the pages of the scriptures. So you'll find that this man's soul was desperate. You can always tell when someone is desperate. And part of the reason why he's desperate is because he doesn't have any other support system apart from God. So if God doesn't show up, he's in trouble. And that's the reason for the desperation. Now, someone that has a plan B is not likely to be desperate. Desperation is an indication of the fact that it is God and God only that is your strong tower. And this man had no other support system. He was in the midst of so many battles. So many assassins had been mandated to take him out. And the only hope he had for survival was to make contact with God. So there was this desperation that was an accompaniment with his soul. And that's part of the description of how he longed for God. Now, there is, and I know most of us understand this particular experience. Most of us do. But there's an aspect that I don't think most of us have experienced. The man did not only say that his soul was thirsting for God, the man also said his flesh longed for God. And how does his flesh long for God? In a dry and thirsty land where no water is. I don't know how, if you have ever gone on a dry fast before. Do you know what I mean by a dry fast? Okay, I think I need to define. I think I need to define what a dry fast is. In fact, a super dry fast is what I'm talking about. The prophets and intercessors that taught us said, because your body contains water, it is advisable that when you fast, you should hydrate yourself so that your fasting doesn't expose you to health challenges. And that's very balanced. However, there are several times that we embark upon what we call the super dry fast, where we don't eat and we don't drink for days because we're in search of God. And if you start a super dry fast without water, somewhere along the line, in the night, around 8 o'clock, your flesh will long for water. Your body will begin to speak with aggression. This guy, it was not water that he was seeking, it was God he was seeking, but his flesh began to agitate with aggression. That's what he's trying to describe here. Okay, let me leave you. Oh, you people have not had enemies before, the way I'm seeing you. You have not had people that have sought your life before. Those days, I was a rural preacher. Went to preach the gospel in a rural community, and their God was in the forest. They had an altar dedicated to a strange being, and there were priests selected from among the people whose duty was to tend the altar and to administer the needs that the Spirit has. It was a community that was governed by an altar of darkness, and we took the campaign of the gospel into their community. As always, the Lord was faithful to us. We went there with dry fast. 3 days, no food, no water. Our intercessors went into the territory before we showed up to destroy all the infrastructure. We never knew that there was an altar in the woods. So when we began the campaign, God gave us a great victory. And while I was preaching, some of our people, I didn't send them, some of our people got intelligence that the altar of the community was in the forest, and they went to the forest that night and broke it down. That is called sacrilege according to the custom of the people. And the people responsible for that action were supposed to be put to death, and their blood used to I've forgotten the word to use, to cleanse the altar of the defilement and the abomination that they had brought. They sought to kill. I know you have not been desperate. You have not been desperate. You are just, having normal problems. You need a raise in your salary. You need a raise. You've been having normal problems. These guys sought to kill. And a few times we've been in conditions like that. Not because we are evil people, just because of the gospel. We've been in situations like that. If you've ever been in a situation like that and you have no other stronghold apart from God, I have stories to tell you. I've been a missionary for a long time. I've seen all kinds of things. I've been in the forefront of the warfare of the gospel. In my own time, I've been there. So I can tell you one or two things. This guy was in a desperate situation, and he said that his flesh began to long for God. It was as if you don't show up, something terrible will happen. That's the kind of devotion that David had in the presence of God. And the next verse, which is verse 2, tells us why he's so desperate. You will think that the reason why he was desperate was because his life was in danger. That is not the case. The reason why he was desperate was because he wanted to interface with the glory of God. Now, he makes a statement here that I'd like us to take note of before we proceed in our study. Because our study this morning has a theoretical aspect, theoretical part, and it also has a practical part. The gospel is not in word. Hallelujah. So if we cannot secure the backing of God in our campaign of the gospel, it will not have the effect, the impact that it is designed to have. And so this man is saying that the reason why I am desperate, the reason why my flesh is longing, is because I want to see. Please take note of the things he wants to see. What does he want to see? He wants to see God's power and God's glory. That's not all. There is a reference point. There is a reference point for his expectation. There is a reference point for his desire. He is desiring to see something he's seen before. So there's a reference point. Where did he see this power and glory? He saw it in the sanctuary. Okay. Now, are you there? So what this guy is saying is that I want to import the presence and the glory of God that I experience in the house of God, in the place of corporate fellowship. I want to export that presence into my bedroom. And that's the reason for which he was desperate, to the point where his flesh began to long. So, It means that there is a dimension of God's power and God's glory which you will first experience in the sanctuary. You will not first experience it in your bedroom. You will experience it in the corporate fellowship. We've been teaching for the past, I believe I've done 4 lessons on this subject before my trip. We've been teaching about what makes the church, what makes our gathering different from a social gathering, what makes our gathering different from the gathering you find in a stadium when there's a football match, there's Premier League, there's Champions League. What makes our gathering different? That's what we've been trying to find out. Because at every point in time, we must understand the essence, the reason for which we meet together. It is not a tradition. It is something very spiritually deep. And when we understand the reason for which we do the things we do, we are likely able to maximize the reason for which we gather. So this man is saying that there was a dimension of the glory of God that was trapped in the sanctuary anytime there's a corporate fellowship like what we're experiencing now. And he wanted to export that glory and that power to his own personal estate. The reference point for this power is the sanctuary. That's where he saw it. It was in the sanctuary. He even knew that there was a dimension like that. There are dimensions that you will first experience in the sanctuary. And it's expected that each and every one of us will take a piece, a portion of that corporate release of God's presence into our bedroom. It means that if somebody is starving, dying spiritually, what you need to do is to get the person into rich corporate fellowship. His spirit will come back to life because there is a density of God's grace that is concentrated in his presence that is capable of rejuvenating someone's spirit that has lost touch with God. All right, so he is asking for the corporate experience, a little part of it, if he could import it into his house, import it into his business, import a little of it into his practice as a professional, import a little of it into his office. But the reference point for the experience he's talking about is what he encountered where? In the sanctuary. Exactly.